All right, well, I could not be more excited about our game this week. Two teams that are coming off of big character wins. You know, it's at this point in the season, I think it's really easy for teams that are winning a lot to keep winning and keep investing a lot. I think in both Sac State's case and in our case, there's a tremendous amount of character showed to fight back from opening losses in the conference slate and do it in the fashion that both teams did. So this is a big game that both teams have played their way into, and I know that our guys are really excited about it. Particularly earlier in this week, I couldn't say enough good things as we reviewed the film of the Idaho game and celebrated a great victory. But it's, as I've said before, there's a reason why the rear view mirror is small and the windshield is big. We've got to stay looking ahead. We'll glance back at it. We'll be proud of it. We'll learn from when we've lost in the past too. We've got to learn from that and make sure that it's part of our history. But we've got to have 100% of our focus on a very capable Sacramento State team. They're one of the best, one of the premier rushing teams in the country, and they spread it all around. There are 3, 4, sometimes even 5 potential ball carriers on every given play. I think that's, I'm not entitled to or authorized to define the go-go offense, but I think that's what it is. It's just the ability for multiple players to line up in the backfield and have a lot of misdirection and a lot of opportunities for guys to carry it. They're doing an excellent job of it. They're good up front. They've got a lot of speed on the outside. Can't fall asleep in the passing game. And defensively, they're probably one of the most aggressive front teams that we will face or have faced all season long, up in the top of the country in sacks, tackles for loss, blowing away the whole Big Sky in both of those categories. And again, just like on offense, they spread it around. I think there are 12, 14 different players with sacks and tackles for losses on their roster, which shows that they have a lot of ability and variety in their schemes and a lot of depth in their program. So a big challenge that we're excited for, but nonetheless a big challenge. Yeah, don't want to oversimplify it or be boring, but it really is going to come down to playing with lower pad level, getting off blocks, doing a good job with our hands, and maybe most importantly or specifically for the Sacramento State challenges, having our eyes in the right place. There are a lot of games where we line up and there's 2 potential ball carriers, the running back and the quarterback, and if the quarterback is not really a threat that way, then it's 90% of our focus is on the back, and that really changes this week. We've got to be really disciplined in the way we line up and where we put our eyes and feet. We've got to get off blocks and tackle well. Well, the first thing we've got to be sure of is that they're playing us the same way that they've played the rest of the season. There's nothing. There's no rule that they have to continue to come out and put a lot of pressure on us with extra rushers. They could rush 4 and do a really good job because they have a good front 4. They could rush 3 and probably do a pretty good job of pressuring us. So we've got to, like in all games, we've got to identify what the defense is doing and then try to hit them where they're not. And that'll be a challenge all this week in our preparation, and that'll be a challenge on game day as well because there will be adjustments. Our offense is different than the offenses that Sacramento State has been facing, and so they'll have a new plan. Like their coordinator, I've been their defensive coordinator and defensive staff. I'm familiar with a lot of their work for over past years, and they are capable of doing a lot of different things. They have smart players, a lot of depth, a lot of speed on the outside, and that allows you to be as multiple as you want to be as a defensive coordinator. So we've got to be ready for almost anything. Certainly well-deserved honor. I mean, I would say it's a characteristic of their whole front. They're big, they're fast, they play with great effort, energy. I believe it's their philosophy. We face different philosophical approaches throughout the season, and you can tell that some defensive linemen are taught to play laterally and play with their hands and control gaps by moving laterally and getting separation, and other defensive linemen are released more to kind of penetrate and get up the field, and that's what all of their defensive linemen do really well. They create a lot of havoc. That's a kind of a term in the last 5 or 10 years, but the havoc rate that Sacramento State is able to cause, not just with TFLs and sacks, but but just their stuff rate overall, they can put an offense behind the chains really quickly. We're one practice in. We had a Tuesday practice. We've got another practice this afternoon. The Tuesday practice was focused, was good. Mark of a championship football team, the mark of a mature football team is a team that can move on from both wins and losses. And I think we've proven that we can move on from losses at this point. And we're going to find out how mature we are this week. It's in this league, in the Big Sky, I feel like every team is gettable, and so are we. And so it's going to come down to who prepares the most. The will to win is one thing, and we have that, and we've suffered a lot of losing around here, but the will to prepare is so much more powerful and an appropriate indicator of the outcome of the game. I think you used a great word. You ought to think about maybe joining the staff, our coaching staff. But I think there's a little bit of coach in there. The acknowledgement of a well-played game, a hard-fought game, a ranking, that stuff's important. But it's just that. It's an acknowledgement, and we move past it. It's not part of our preparation, really. And so that's the whole idea behind the gold bricks in the facility is it's there, and it'll always be there. And you can come back and show your kids the part of the gold brick games that you were in. But it doesn't have much to do with what we're doing right now. That's rearview mirror stuff. And there's an old saying in college football. I heard it when I was a player, but let the poles and the bowls take care of themselves, and we just focus on the next opponent. And it's part of our mantra. We respect every opponent, but we bow to no program, and that's the kind of legacy that this team wants to leave. That's the idea. To be able to say, yeah, we're prepped for every scenario. It sounds a little arrogant to me. I appreciate that you would think we might be able to do that. But if you walked into our defensive staff room, you'd see up on the board there's 3 deep at every position, and we're very aware of in terms of the opponent. We're 3 deep in terms of who we're studying and how it might change the game. And quarterbacks have the ability to change the game more than any other position with their style. You've seen that with us this year, being kind of built around Peter Castelli and his strengths, and then all of a sudden we're playing with our number 2 quarterback, and we're so much better built for that this year. And that's one of the things I'm proud of, is that at a lot of positions we've suffered a lot of injuries and still competed hard for 4 quarters and believed in each other. So yes, we were prepared for Jack Wagner. I mean, Jack Wagner last week at Idaho, he was 6-1 as a starter last year. That's a very capable quarterback, and we knew how that would change the game, and it did change the game for us. For them, they were able to do things against us that the starting quarterback, as good as he was, Joshua Wood, and as much as I talked about him last week, they're 2 different quarterbacks with 2 different strength sets. And so we were caught a little bit on our heels in terms of defending Jack and the things he could do. We were aware, but obviously we're going to prepare the most for the incumbent starter. I think this is still a premier conference in FCS football. I want to be clear about that. When I say that the whole conference is gettable, and so are we, what I'm leaning into our mantra of we bow to no program. We can beat every team on our schedule, and they can beat us if we don't show up and play hard, and more importantly, prepare hard all week so that we have a chance to play hard on game day. I still think that we have some premier teams in this league that can win national championships and go all the way through the playoffs. So I don't mean that as an indictment on the league in any way. I feel like it's still a very strong league, and the thing I'm most excited about us is that it appears that we're tracking to improve during the season, and that's not an easy thing to do. I feel like we're getting better each week. It could be. My opinion is that the top teams in this league traditionally have raised everybody else's game. I know that our university, our athletic department, we're trying to figure out the investments, the institutional investments that are being made at the top of our conference, and they're massive and impressive. And that's something we've got to try to catch. This room that you're sitting in right now, this is a big part of this, is just being in the Big Sky. Our new weight room 3 years ago that was built, that's a big part of being in the Big Sky. We have to keep pace. And not all conferences have those, kind of front runners with the big resources like Montana and Montana State and Idaho, and NAU now is pouring a lot of resources into their program. And so I really think it's all about, aspiring to be the best amongst our peers, and that leads to really a lot of intentional efforts to just get better. I feel like, if we say Montana, Montana State, and Idaho, I feel like they're the same strength they've always been. They're going to be in the national championship picture every year. That's a lot of pressure. I'm not going to try to match what you just pulled off right there. Super impressive. I'm glad it's recorded. I'm just going to stick to. I've said this a couple of times already. If you want to know everything you need to know about Eric Gibson, he joined us, a team with an incumbent starter. He came in to compete. He competed really well in spring practice. Ascended up the depth chart to the second quarterback. And I'll meet with anywhere from 75 to almost 100% of our players after every spring practice session, and unscripted. My door is open, but most of the time, guys will want to come by after spring practice and after a season, and find out from the head coach what our plan is for them for progress. And almost all the time, that conversation is, how do I go from number 3? How do I move up the depth chart? How do I earn a scholarship? How do I become all-conference, all-American? How do I make it to the NFL, coach? And I'm clear with our players all the time. I mentioned several times a year, I have a plan for each one of you individually. Come see me, and I'll share that. Eric, it was a unique meeting. It was the first time a player ever came to me. He walked in my office and said, "Thanks for meeting with me, coach. I want to know how I can be a better number 2." He wanted advice on how to be a better number 2 quarterback. That type of confidence, that true confidence, that's not. It's not something you're going to find on Instagram, right? That's not sexy, but that's real and authentic, and I think that's why his leadership is transcended throughout our team, is they see him that way. Disappointed for all the injuries and Peter Costelli in this case, but for Eric to have this opportunity to make the most of that, it's a great leadership example for everybody on our team who's ever been number 2 or number 3 and wants to be the best they can, but still believes in themselves if they get the opportunity.